It's going.
Live from Northern California. This is Carol Kiesler, and this is our first discussion on spiritual politics. I'm going to be asking Alan Kiesler some questions here, and I hope that this will be enlivening for you, as it is my intent to learn about an area that Alan Kiesler knows pretty well. So we're going to start with Kashmir. And welcome to everybody that's joining us. Thank you for your love. Kashmir. Often we come out here in the morning and discuss things that's on my heart. And I have Pakistan on my mind too. And so the question has arisen about Kashmir. What was it that I asked you? Help me to get it going, will you?
You asked me, who does Kashmir belong to, or who owns Kashmir?
So, who does Kashmir belong to, and who owns it?
Well, the easy answer is that it's the Kashmiri people who the Kashmir belongs to. But there is also the question politically about who controls Kashmir, or who does it rightfully belong to in terms of the India and Pakistan dispute over Kashmir.
So I wondered, can Kashmir obtain autonomy, and how would that happen? Because it seems to me that this is a region that very few people in the world really understand or think about. But I see that Kashmir is extremely important right now for because it is the watershed for the Indus River, right? Doesn't all that water come out of Kashmir?
A lot of the rivers that come into Pakistan flow through Kashmir, yes.
So
many of the rivers.
Many of the rivers. Which rivers? Which rivers?
Let's
what
see.
Are the big ones?
The Jhelum, of course, the Indus is the largest river, and the part of the Indus flows through part of what we would officially call Kashmir formerly. And let's see, then the Jhelum, of course. I'm trying to remember which rivers flow through. The Ravi, I think.
Well, anyway,
I don't remember the names of all which rivers flow through Kashmir, but 2 or 3 of the very big rivers flow through Kashmir, yes.
Well, I think a lot of the people that are listening know which rivers and the importance of water in Pakistan at this time, because beloved Imran Khan is asking for money from Pakistanis all over the world to help build a dam. And then I heard that Modi had already set some dams going in it. So then I thought, well, there was a treaty, right?
Indus Waters Treaty, yes.
And it was agreed upon. What was agreed upon?
There was an agreement, I think it was 1954, brokered by the World Bank to share the waters of the greater Indus Valley, including the 5 rivers of the Punjab, so that Pakistan would get their fair share of them, and India would get some of the water, but not prevent proper amount of water from going to Pakistan. So that was the agreement that was made back in 1954, and it more or less had been followed for many decades.
So when was this treaty broken then?
Well, recently India has been constructing dams, and some years ago Pakistan objected, and India promised that they would not go ahead with that plan, which would be interfering with the water coming to Pakistan freely. And but unfortunately, India went ahead then and did not keep that promise, and went ahead and constructing those dams. which is actually against the agreements made in the Indus Waters Treaty. So it's been only, the last few years that this has all come to a head.
In the meantime, the weather is continuing to become more drastic and causing upheaval and flooding, and I'm really concerned, and a lot of drought too. So just as Imran was asking for money to build a dam, which I know little of, like where does he want to build this dam, and would it be then diverting some of that water towards Pakistan?
Well, the choice to divert the water or not is India's, because the rivers flow from India into Pakistan. The rivers don't flow from Pakistan into India. So Pakistan is not trying to divert the waters. Pakistan is just wanting to dam the rivers to have more steady, some energy, but also water supply more steadily, so they can control their water supply in case India does block off the water supply that comes through Kashmir and India. Then Pakistan will have a greater water supply that can be diverted from the Indus to other rivers that could be blocked by India. That seems to be one of the main issues.
So my concern is about water for Pakistan, and I have a friend who's living on the southern tip of Hawaii, and she gets, and a lot of these Hawaiian people get water from catchment. So when there was a very heavy hurricane going through the islands, she saw it as a blessing because she was able to have something like a whole year's worth of water dumped into her catchment and give her supply and end a big worry for her. And I'm wondering with weather coming in, because I sense that, there's a hurricane that had hit, I believe, Japan, and there's some other ones that are going on. So when a hurricane hits Bangladesh, I know that the low-lying areas are going to be affected tremendously, and there'll probably be a lot of flooding and a lot of loss of life. But are people actually considering catching some of that water? And would, Pakistan set into motion uh, communal catchment uh, cisterns, these big cisterns that will catch the water? It seems to me that in ancient times that is what had happened. So, so let me go back to Kashmir. Um, what would it take for Kashmir to become autonomous? Let's just say, let's just look at this spiritually, okay? Because uh, because it's quite possible to see a solution if we look at this spiritually.
I agree completely that we should look at it spiritually. Otherwise, there doesn't seem to be any solution, because India controls the heart of Kashmir, the veil of Kashmir, and is not willing to give it up, and feels that it has the right to it and that it is an integral part of India. Pakistan also feels that Kashmir really belongs to Pakistan, because of the Muslim majority. So,
But can I say something?
sure.
You had said something earlier about that Kashmir was ruled by an Indian,
By a Hindu.
by a Hindu, but Kashmir was predominantly Muslim, just like uh, what was that other place that you told me down south?
Hyderabad.
Hyderabad was ruled by a Muslim, and it was predominantly Hindu. So why do we? Here's a spiritual point. Uh, why do we have to say that a Hindu has to govern Hindu people and a Muslim have to govern Muslim people. Why can't these rulers just have the free choice to worship with the faith and the religion that they feel drawn to and worship all peoples of faith? So I see that it was possibly that there's a spiritual solution here for ruling Kashmir. Not ownership, but a way of watching over a country. So I'm okay with a Hindu overwatching Kashmir, but not necessarily saying that it belongs to India. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, well, the way we started out, you first asked me who owns or who does Kashmir belong to. Spiritually, I would say there's no doubt that Kashmir belongs to the Kashmiri people. Um, Now, the real problem arises when we talk about politics without a spiritual aspect. So India is looking at Kashmir not from a spiritual perspective, but just from the perspective of political control. And Pakistan is also looking at Kashmir from the perspective of political control. And neither country really wants to give Kashmir to the Kashmiris. Each of them wants to control it for themselves. So what I've been saying for a long time, since the late 1990s at least, that Kashmir has to be given autonomy internally. The Kashmiris should be allowed to run their own internal affairs. But because India is not willing to give up Kashmir, and because Pakistan is not willing to give up Kashmir, therefore, Kashmir should be made part of both India and Pakistan. So what that means is that Kashmiris would be citizens of both India and Pakistan. They would vote in the national elections of both countries. There would be Kashmiri representatives in the embassies of both countries and the United Nations delegations of both countries. There would be Kashmiris participating. But the internal affairs of Kashmir should be left to the Kashmiris to run entirely on their own. And in terms of the other external affairs, India and Pakistan would have to work together. They would have to cooperate, which means they would have to develop some love and trust, which now looks very impossible, but it's possible. If we see this from a spiritual perspective, it will be to the great advantage of India to get freed from this horrible situation in which Indian troops are basically occupying the Vale of Kashmir, the central part of Kashmir, and many deaths are resulting, and there is a real revolution going on against the Indian government. The Kashmiri people do not want to be ruled by the Indians under a military type of rulership, which is very horrible, very sickening. It's only because many people in the world don't know what's really going on there that it's being allowed to continue. So if India could get a face-saving mechanism in place, how they could escape from this horrible situation in which they're obliged, from their perspective, to control Kashmir militarily, then it would be very simple for India to withdraw its troops from Kashmir, turn over Kashmir internally to the Kashmiris, and allow Kashmir to still be part of India and also part of Pakistan. So this is really what I see as the spiritual solution to the Kashmiri problem.
Is there any place in the world where this idea has been set into motion, do you think?
That's a good question. I've never thought about that.
A place where both the external affairs represent two countries?
I can't think of any place where this has happened. Maybe there has that I can't think of now, but
And perhaps this is what is perhaps the spiritual flowering of a country. And that seems pretty appropriate for Kashmir, since Kashmir is a watershed and water is spirit, and there are mountains there, and mountains are very revered by the ancient peoples. And so it would take actually a spiritual movement from the Kashmiri people themselves. And that would mean to increase love and fellowship.
Of course,
Because, go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah, the Kashmiri people are by nature very loving and very spiritual and very hospitable. And it seems to me that, yes, like you're saying, if the Kashmiri people would understand this point, that they could request internal autonomy, but be willing to allow Pakistan and India together to administer the external affairs of Kashmir, then this could be the beginning of a solution like this.
And that would be the people of Kashmir would vote for their leadership, and then the leadership, knowing that these people in government would be working with two different countries. Is I'm not sure how a little jewel can excite such brilliance and might, but I feel spiritually that we must have faith in the Kashmiri people to um, to break a mold, so to speak, to break a political mold and set an example for world peace, especially with water rights. And the Pakistani people and other areas of Pakistan are going to be needing that water just as much as India. And I'm not sure we're seeing here how water has become a very political hot subject in the United States. Um, it's very, very bad. So we do need an example. And I'm just feeling that people are not talking about this. So that's why I decided to go live so that you could hear our thoughts, because this is the kind of conversation that Alan and I have here in the morning. And I wanted to include you in this and to understand that I see love as part of political leadership. I see love and consciousness and loving kindness and kindness for all people and pure treatment for the water, and that water must not be used as a political tool, a
A weapon.
a weapon. Water must not be used as a weapon. I don't even like to say it because it's possible that it could go in that way, and I feel that more people are speaking about what is a spiritual person and what is spirituality, and that it is actually possible to have spiritual politicians.
This is a wonderful idea. As I said, for the past 20 years I've been promoting this idea after I was instructed by a Sufi, a great spiritual personality, that Kashmir should be bais-i-nafrat nahi, balke bais-i-muhabbat, not because of hatred, but because of love. So I had been talking about this for a long time, but actually only just now, during this live conversation, as you mentioned that the Kashmiri people should lead a spiritual movement, it suddenly struck me this is the practical way to implement that. If the people of Kashmir will themselves adopt this program and promote this program, that is the way that it can actually be practically implemented. So I think that is really the solution. Let the Kashmiri people understand this principle, and I think they will love it, because Kashmiris are by nature spiritual. Kashmiris are by nature loving, and Kashmiris will be able to appreciate how India and Pakistan can actually be brought into a loving and trustful relationship on the basis of working together to run the external affairs of Kashmir. And it means that neither India or Pakistan will have to give up their claims on Kashmir. Both can retain their claims, but this solution can bring about love and trust and a harmonious relationship between India and Pakistan, which right now, especially with the water issue and the many other issues also between India and Pakistan, it's very dangerous. Could a war could start between India and Pakistan. Probably it's more dangerous now than it's been maybe since 1999, since the Kargil war. And there was a war in 1999, and it sort of cooled off after some time, and now it's heating up again with India building these dams against the Indus Waters Treaty. It's a very, very dangerous situation. So if the Kashmiri people can come forward and adopt this program and promote it and appeal to both India and Pakistan to accept it, I think that's the way we can get the publicity and the attention of the leaders of India and Pakistan. I actually wrote a letter 1999 to both Musharraf and Vajpayee. Vajpayee was the Prime Minister of India. Musharraf at that time was the administrator. He had not yet become the president. He did shortly after that take the position of president. But I wrote them both exactly this proposal that I'm describing right here. And I think they both accepted it, really, and started working on it. But then before too long, there was the attack on the Indian parliament, which obviously was a false flag. But it was blamed on Pakistan and on Kashmiri Muslims. And then the peace process, which Musharraf and Vajpayee were both interested in, got sidetracked. So now is the time to take it up again. And if the Kashmiri people lead this program, then I think it can happen quite quickly, actually.
But not only that, if the spiritual people of India, and I know that they resonate with this, if the spiritual people of India would support this idea, just like the spiritual people of Pakistan, those who understand that all religions love God and that they are designed to complement one another, not to be adversaries, but to be brothers in love and in so that we may progress as a species, and so that our children can have water to drink. And so these people of Pakistan, which I have been, which I feel, you want to get a little comfortable here? You're just slipping off here. We had decided that I was not going to be on Facebook live. I was just going to be in the background, but obviously my husband is trying to sit on my lap here. But what I'm saying is that maybe it's the change in weather. Maybe it's because we're seeing so much travesty and so many, the loss of so many people, and politics is becoming even more transparent. Here in the United States, there is not too much movement politically because the people that are surrounding anyone that attempts to rule are uncovering so much deception. So things don't move, but they are moving spiritually. They're not moving politically. They are moving spiritually because the people in the United States are doing a lot of work themselves by being more responsible in their own lives and being mindful and being accountable. And we are learning so much as a result, and it can be incredibly overwhelming, but yet in order to be a spiritual person, one must learn to forgive themselves for those times where we didn't quite understand what was going on. And we're all learning so quickly from our mistakes. And so we would like our leaders to be accountable for their actions and to treat others as they would treat us. It doesn't matter what their faith or religion is. It's a spiritual movement that is changing things here in the West. And I know that spirituality exists. It has always existed. It has seemed to exist more in India because of the yoga and the meditation factors and those who wish to be able to be closer to God. But since I have been communicating spiritually with Pakistan these past 9 years, I'm actually seeing that there is no place on earth where a political leader has honored his wife like Imran Khan. He has announced to the world that his wife is his spiritual advisor. So that it takes a spiritual man to be able to say that his wife is his advisor and set an example for relationships there. And that's at the top here now in Pakistan. India does not have that. So I know that there is a spiritual force that is blossoming in Pakistan. And I feel that that spiritual force can then understand how important it would be for Kashmir to be able to have the autonomous government of which both countries are, India and Pakistan, are in their political ways and of governing a country.
External affairs.
External affairs. So, did you understand what I said?
Yes, I think it's
did?
beautiful. So I think, should we see if people have made comments that we want to reply to? Or
But I just want to make sure that you understood what I said. I'm feeling that all these years, India has been expressing great spirituality, but now I see that Pakistan is expressing great spirituality and that Imran Khan is a very spiritual man. And I'm sure I wouldn't be surprised if this idea has not been seen by him as well, that Kashmir, which I just learned today, would be be, I don't know the how to say it, but have political ties. The Kashmir's external, how do you say it?
external affairs would be run jointly by India and Pakistan.
He said it perfectly, didn't he?
And Kashmir would be a part of both India and Pakistan.
Yes. All
Yes,
right.
I love that idea you said that Pakistan is a deeply spiritual country. Of course, I've been aware of that for a long time, but very few Americans have even heard of that idea, just the opposite. But Pakistanis are deeply spiritual, and as you said, it's true. The Indians are also spiritual. So Indians and Pakistanis could work together on a spiritual platform. And this actually is the solution, in my opinion, to all the problems in the world. When people of different religions who have been antagonistic and have not understood each other very well come together in love and harmony, that's what's going to bring about world peace too. So this can begin in Kashmir. India and Pakistan establish a loving relationship. Kashmiri people who are, as I've said again and again, I've met Kashmiri people, they're deeply spiritual by nature. And they will be able to promote this sort of unity between India and Pakistan through their own example. So that's
And the gift of the Kashmiri people to the world, to all people, would be sustainable stewardship of the watershed of that flows through flows there. This is very, very important here right now. If we want to um, have a world to live in, it affects the entire world. Actually, it would it would affect the entire world. This kind of generosity, this open, natural spirit that is the spirit of the water.
All right. Do you want to look at comments and
all
see
right.
what people
Let's
have
look
said?
at some comments. I think
Okay.
there are some there.
Okay, let me see here. Oh, we have a lot of comments already, I can see. I don't know if we can even go back to all of them, but let us see. Ayub Khan Meher. Hi, love you from India. May Almighty bless you. Thank you.
We love you too, to India and back.
Well, I'm just going to try to find anything specifically about Kashmir, since that is what our topic is today. Zalali says, thanks for the live program.
You're welcome.
And Bilal Arif says, River Ravi. Yes, where Ravi River goes through Kashmir, I guess. Chenab, yes. Chenab, I was thinking about the Chenab, but I wasn't 100%. Chenab also goes through Kashmir and comes into Pakistan.
So I just want to say that whatever comes up around building dams and the rivers and the politics of Kashmir, that spiritual people would see this actually happening. This spiritual vision that Alan has had, that he had actually written to these two politicians back in what year?
I believe it was 1999.
1999 he wrote to them of this vision. And so I think it's very important that spiritual people of India as well as Pakistan as well as Kashmir come together spiritually to envision this happening. Wouldn't that be something? I can see it happening. I can see it happening.
Okay, so Abdul Walid Khan has clarified that the Indus River and the Tavi River, the Ravi River and the Chenab River is coming through Kashmir. So those are the four rivers that we're specifically talking about here.
Sindh is already suffering from shortage of water.
Hussein Chacha says Sindh already is suffering for shortage of water. On the other hand, government wants to make dams, and due to shortage of water, Indus Delta completely damaging.
Over here, it's really horrible with all of the toxic chemicals that are running off into the oceans and into the Gulf. Everything is changing.
Abdul Walid Khan is adding, and yeah, I almost forgot, Sutlej River is also coming through Kashmir. Okay, so Kashmir, Shahid Sultan says, Kashmir is a very beautiful. Kashmiris are very brave people. Kashmiris love Pakistan. Mostly Kashmiris want freedom to India and become part of Pakistan. India forcefully occupied Kashmir. Oh, this is a long comment. Where does it go back to? 700,000 Indian army in India and occupied Kashmir. Indian army is brutally killing the innocent people of Kashmir. Kashmir is a majority Muslim state. Therefore, Kashmiri people want to join Pakistan. They can freely worship and live peacefully with Pakistan. Kashmiris are giving too much sacrifices. Kashmiris buried their shaheeds in Pakistani flag. Kashmir naturally belonged to Pakistan.
We have to look at, can heads of countries keep treaties? Because I know in America they don't keep treaties at all with their native people. So what do we want to see? More of the worst type of policies on the planet? Isn't it possible that the love of God and the love of humankind can shift this type of relationships where overpowering has been the norm and bring forth empowering of countries. I think that Kashmir can empower both countries.
So this solution, I think, is very, very unique. And the Kashmiri people, some of them obviously want to be part of Pakistan. Some of them want to be part of India, especially the Hindus. There are plenty of Hindus in Kashmir also. And many Kashmiris, I think, want to be independent. So the Kashmiris are given internal autonomy, and the external affairs run by India and Pakistan together is the perfect solution that should satisfy everyone, more than any other solution anyway. And I really think that the people of India will adopt this idea. They will enthusiastically support this idea because it will free them from their present horrible situation. They know it's not good. As much as they find out about it, because of course the news media suppresses it, but as much as Indian people find out what's really going on in Kashmir, they feel horrible that their military forces are treating the Kashmiri people so badly. So they will be very happy to support withdrawing the Indian forces from Kashmir, giving the Kashmiris total autonomy to run their own internal affairs. India will not be willing to give Kashmir to Pakistan, but they will be willing to give Kashmir to the Kashmiris if India and Pakistan both cooperatively can run Kashmir's external affairs, and Kashmir can remain a part of India and also a part of Pakistan. That's really the only solution that India will accept.
Well, I think
that will be good for Kashmiris and good for Indians and good for Pakistanis, good for everybody.
But let's not be blind. I mean, these external affairs are all about water. So we're saying, I'm saying, I know in my heart that Imran Khan is a very spiritual man, and I know that he has that spiritual vision. I am just praying that we can all be focused on this spiritual vision, and that Modi would also see it as well, and that whatever he is doing will benefit the watershed for Pakistan also. I can see that I can see it, that Modi would say, this is the way to go, because I don't want to reincarnate into hell states by depriving Pakistan and all other areas from what the mountain gives people freely. I'm certain that his religious background would support him in this spiritual endeavor. Don't you think?
Yes, if Modi really understands what his religion is, he certainly would have to understand that the mountains, the rains are giving water freely to everybody, and for him to try to control the water and prevent it from going to Pakistan is definitely against his religion. So he should understand that. And he should also understand, if he continues the present policy of brutal oppression of the Kashmiri people, he will go to hell. He will suffer grievously for that.
Well, we really don't want to wish that upon anyone.
Right, so to save him from that.
Certainly all the people who are killing one another, families who recognize even their own oppressors, that a spiritual force will come and cleanse the minds and awaken the people's hearts into forgiveness and cooperation. And that is a very well possible. Prophets have come forth and have said that great awakenings of consciousness have come from the spiritual realm. And so this is, and I'm certain that Modi is aware of this. And perhaps these dams that he is making right now are going to benefit. I can see that these dams are going to benefit Pakistan. We don't need dams for energy, by the way. We need a way to protect the water from contaminants.
All right, so we have another comment here. Muhammad Furqan. Kashmir is not part of India, not even two nuts. We Kashmiris want freedom from India. Yes, the Kashmiri people generally want freedom from India. There's no doubt at all about that. But India has their way of claiming that Kashmir is part of India, and many Indian people think that way. They believe that. So it's not going to be easy to get them to give up that claim. So this solution that I'm proposing is one way that will allow the Indian people to save face, to keep Kashmir as part of India, which they have made the decision. Originally, that was not in 1947-48. India accepted Kashmir as a separate condition, a separate part of India, not integral part of India. But then later, India made Kashmir an integral part of India. So that's the way India feels about it. Rightly or wrongly, they are convinced of that, and so they can't agree to give up Kashmir so easily. But in this solution, they can give Kashmir internal autonomy and keep some sort of a sense that Kashmir is part of India, and also allow it to be part of Pakistan, and allow India and Pakistan to work together. This is unique, to create love and trust between India and Pakistan on the basis of cooperation in Kashmir. So I think this is really the solution. Otherwise, you say that Kashmir is not a part of India. That's of course the way Pakistanis feel, and that's the way many Kashmiris feel, but mostly Indians don't feel that way. So we need some new idea.
Spiritually speaking, the mountains, the land, the water is a part of an ecological system of Mother Earth, of the earth, and we are here as human beings to caretake the earth, not to possess it, but to observe nature and to enhance what has been given to us as gifts. It's not to own the earth. None of us actually own the earth. It's the old political way of, it's an old paradigm of oppressing people and dividing people, and even to the point now where families are being divided by technologies, actually. So the earth belongs to everyone. It's not something that you don't conquer lands. You steward them, and so that's possible. That is really possible to work to. We need intelligent, conscious people to protect the land and to protect the natural elements, to enhance life so that the human being can continue here on earth.
Actually, yes, you're right. That's a very, very important point. Here I've been talking about who owns Kashmir, but actually not India, not Pakistan, not even the Kashmiris own Kashmir. God owns Kashmir, we could say, or
exactly.
Kashmir does not belong to any of us.
Kashmir is here for us to take care of.
It's our duty to take care of the earth, to take care of the land and the water in such a way that is beneficial to everybody. None of us owns anything, really.
Exactly. We call that region Kashmir. So it's quite possible that you would look at it this way and then emanate that from a source of truth within yourself, which is a spiritual awakening. As I see this spiritual awakening happening in Pakistan, because of the way he has introduced his wife and partner as a spiritual advisor, that is not to be taken lightly or to ignore.
Yes. So this is important. This is a very, very significant development. As you said, nowhere else in the world do we have a political leader of the stature of Imran Khan who acknowledges his wife as his spiritual guide. So this is a great development. because, as I've often said, women are the ones who are going to bring peace on earth. So
Women don't want to possess, they want to caretake, and they want to grow, and they want to foster and nourish and nurture. They want to give life. And with the changes that are coming up, water needs to be protected, and it needs to be able to be given to both Pakistan and India. Things are happening. It will happen very, very quickly. I'm asking for you to experience what I'm saying as a shift in the paradigm of consciousness, that it is the earth herself that gives us the means to continue life. And that is what I am, and why I am sharing what we're doing, called spiritual politics.
okay, we'll go back to see any other comments or questions here. Let's see what we can find. So Umar Baba is asking about the Sufi saint from Kashmir, from Srinagar, named Shah Hamdan. Well, I don't know that much about Shah Hamdan, so...
We hope you've had a direct experience with him.
All right, let's see. Lynn Pereira, our pastor here in Esparto. Yes, maybe Kashmir. Oh, this
Could be
this got reversed here.
the model that Carol asked about.
So,
I've heard since I was a little boy, it is a very beautiful place in the world. Yes.
so this is a beautiful idea. Yes, thank you, Pastor Lynn. He's suggesting that Kashmir could be the model that Carol has asked about. That it's a very beautiful place, and it can be the place where love starts, not only between India and Pakistan, but in the whole world.
And all the little birds flying overhead agree as well. And we would like to see more sages in the world come forth to share their wisdom with us, with humanity, and to help steward this beautiful planet.
So Mehish Anwar says, Kashmir spiritually belonged to Pakistan and politically related to both countries.
Oh, come on now.
Spiritually,
Gosh.
Pakistan and India, or the Pakistani people and the Indian people, do not even own their own countries, what to speak of Kashmir. So this is what we were just
discussing. Oh, for goodness sakes. That
Yeah.
really sounds like from the ego, I'm sorry to say. It's not from the heart.
So Kashmir does not belong to Pakistan, Kashmir does not belong to India, Kashmir does not even belong to the Kashmiris. In the beginning I said Kashmir belongs to Kashmir. Kashmir actually belongs to God, and all of us need to work together to use Kashmir and Pakistan and India in the service of God, in the service of humanity, in the service of all creation. That is the correct understanding that can bring peace and love between the people, not thinking that Kashmir belongs to this or that country or this or that people.
We belong to our bodies like Kashmir belongs to the earth. It's important for you to take care of your body and your health, just like it's important to take care of the earth and the water and the land and the soils, so that you can plant.
So Muhammad Amjad says the lady is very straightforward.
Me?
I'm not sure if he means this lady here or ladies generally, but this lady is very straightforward, and many ladies are.
Thank you.
Javed Afridi says, so where is United Nation and what is the role of UN?
I think it's going to change completely. We need to have spiritual people in politics. No more might over light. Can you say that in Urdu?
अभी हमें रूहानी सियासतदानों की ज़रूरत है और ये ताकत रोशनी से ऊपर नहीं होने चाहिए.
You got it?
So, Muhammad Amjad, she spoke what she really felt, yes. So you're being very straightforward. He's talking about you.
Well,
And let me just say about the United Nations. I wanted to say something.
Go for it.
The United Nations is basically a farce. It is supposed to establish world peace, but we see more and more wars. So the United Nations is not really a United Nations. It is a plot by a few very wealthy people, few wealthy nations to control the rest of the world and pretend that they are establishing world peace and world unity. But obviously they're not establishing world peace. There are more wars now than there were before the United Nations. So we don't expect, at least I don't expect much from the United Nations the way it is now. Maybe if the United Nations is reconstituted so that all the nations of the world actually have a voice and the few countries, the few more powerful, wealthy countries don't control it, then there may be some hope. But as it is now, the United Nations is not really doing much to help anybody.
We are coming into a time now where things are happening very quickly. It's called a quickening, because even you're able to see your thoughts being manifested by words and images outside yourself that are substantiating what you are seeing internally. We are being called to become peace creators, to step forward and start creating beautiful, sustainable images in our hearts, not to see that we're better than another person or another person of a different faith or another person who lives in a different part of the world or anything like that. We have to be co-creators of a new earth. And I believe that it is happening right now. And it's important to talk with you about this now, to give voice to what you are feeling and sensing and hearing within you. And water is an issue. So as you become a peace creator, you can see that those who are in leadership position begin to shift from hoarding and owning and to sharing and protecting. Thank you very much. You can say that in
Very
Urdu.
beautiful. Oh, I think most people
Okay.
are understanding the English enough. All right, let's see. Muhammad Amjad says she spoke with no care what's other opinion. She has free soul. Yes, that's very, very true. I've seen that too.
So thank you very much for noticing. It has taken me 68 years to get there. I'm 68 years old, and I believe that it started when I was in my late 50s. Because before I never had an opinion and I was too shy to even say anything. But now I can't help myself.
All right, Muhammad Amjad says Alan is fine, but he likes to engage people, so he know how to be diplomatic and be smart in words. Okay, let's try to find some other comments about Kashmir, hopefully. Let's see. So, Javed Afridi asks, whose responsibility to solve the issue of Kashmir? Where is United Nations? Well, the United Nations is not going to do it. They have their own agendas. Whose responsibility is it? It's your responsibility.
It's our
responsibility.
It's even my responsibility here in Northern California. I feel a responsibility spiritually to Kashmir. I have always felt that since I was born, and don't ask me why. But there are a lot of people of all faiths who feel a spiritual connection to Kashmir, but not because it is being owned or politicized by anyone, because there's a spiritual force there and it belongs to all of us.
So, let us do it ourselves. You, Jafed Afridi, every Pakistani, every Indian, and especially every Kashmiri should take responsibility to solve the Kashmir problem. And I humbly am convinced that this is the solution. Let the Kashmiri people offer to India and Pakistan, give us our internal autonomy, and we will give you the right to our external affairs. Of course, with the consent of the Kashmiri people, India and Pakistan could together administer Kashmir's external affairs. If we can all agree to that loving, cooperative, harmonious solution, then we can solve the issue of Kashmir. Otherwise, United Nations is not going to do it.
But even so, before that, this conversation is planting a seed. So let this conversation, share it if you feel like sharing it. Let this conversation go out into the etheric atmosphere.
So Mehwish Anwar says, water needs to preserve for future generations. We have no idea how is important to us. It's not related to Pak, India, or Kashmir issue.
Right on. Thank you very much for saying that. You got it.
Yes, very, very important. Water is the future. We need to preserve our water both from pollution and from becoming a weapon. Mahesh Anwar goes on, haha, thank you, but I'm not write this with ego, trust me. Yes, we both understand that. It's not an ego statement you're making. It's very true and important. We do have a question here in Urdu. I hope I can read it. Kya Imran Khan, this is really hard to read this Persian script here for me.
He says he doesn't need glasses.
Well, it's also because the light here, but it is much smaller than the English. So, Imran Khan, बताए हैं कामयाब हो जाएंगे. So I think he's asking what Imran Khan, I'm sorry, I really can't, but something about what Imran Khan has said, is that going to happen?
What did he say?
I'm not sure quite what he's referring to. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble reading.
I would like to know what he said. So when we get offline, perhaps if you can write it, and he will answer your comment later.
Okay, yes.
I'm sorry that we couldn't read it because there is a glare here on the cell phone. There's a glare.
Anyway, when I do, I can go on my computer afterwards and read I can make it larger on my computer and we can see it better. Okay.
All right,
so,
well, we can go. There's only 13 people watching us anyway.
Okay, so we will say goodbye now, and thank you all very, very much.
Thank you
for your help, and we look forward to having...
Your representative, I want to hear that. You're a representative of Cyprus?
Bilawal Afridi.
I'm a representative to Cyprus and Pakistan at World Peace Committee. My opinion is the same as like you. Oh, great. God bless you. I hope we can meet you when we come to Pakistan. We're hoping to come to Pakistan anyway. But I feel that spiritually, there's a lot that can be done every day here just in sharing this conversation. We would like to talk more about spiritual politics.
So thank you all very, very much for joining us, and we will plan to continue these conversations on spiritual politics.
Salam.
Allah Hafiz.